Yo, talk about SHIM. Kind of a weird play. That weird in the fact that I didn't quite know what to think about it going into market open, and because this play has an outstanding shares at 25 million, but then a lot of like float checking websites are reporting that it's a tiny float, and I'm like, I didn't, I saw this in the after hours yesterday, and I'm like, this seems like a grindy higher float play, but I'm like, you know what? Going in today, we had a lot of pre-market weakness, right? We had low volume pre-market, and I was kind of using that as a barometer for like, hey, there might not be a lot of liquidity in some of these gapped up names. It's probably worth it to be short biased. Any aggressive pushes, anything on the book that looks bearish. And I did something that I almost never do is high days almost 350, and it has some painted lower high levels that it could push to. Um, and usually I like to see it get pretty close. I usually like to see it push pretty far, right? And if it doesn't push pretty far, I want a reason, whether it's some type of aggression or some type of bearish book, where I might want to take a short, right? So, uh, what do you call it? So this name, it's probably a lot better to wait for 320s, 330s on this type of name, just because of the walk down structure. Get some type of larger aggressive move towards highs. But the book was really bearish on this push. Like if we go to this push, a lot of the short reads you want to make comes on candles like this, where you get like a massive, massive pullback to like almost instantaneous initiation. Especially if you get aggressive moves towards highs. Look at Silo at like 10:30 yesterday. Those are the types of candles you want to make reads on, right? And a lot of times, if a move is hyper aggressive, um, you want to make quicker reads, right? If it's swiping key levels. Yesterday's Silos at 10:30, 10:45, swiped 240 super quick. I wasn't here for it. I was out with my wife at an appointment, and I had to leave after market open. A little bit after market open, so I missed that name. But that's the type of aggression you want to see. So something like this, just go to the book really fast. The reason I took it is just because, here we had the massive support swipe and the crazy initiation. Starts filling up ask, starts filling up ask, starts filling up ask with minimal bid follow up. So, sorry, just closing this out right now. What do you call it? There we go. So, what do you call it? And then it started stalling, and they started stacking layers and layers, like 6, 7 layers of ass. They were all like 10, 20K each. So I was like, all right, that's a type of aggressive. And I saw also, I mean, I usually don't pay attention to bids that are this low, but it is nice to see some type of bids getting pulled. It's usually better if it's like, say, if this was like a 20K bid that got pulled at the top here, that'd be a lot better. In terms of bids getting pulled, in terms of short signals, it's usually a lot better if it's the bid that initiates the stock that gets pulled, right? So, anyways, I just took this play, but um, anytime I scalp really far away, I think I had a VVPR trade not that long ago that was like this, where it didn't push as close to high day as I like. I tend to get very aggressive with some sells. Obviously, I'm looking at I was just hoping this would crack 270s. Um, if this was a low float shitter, that being said, I did look at the recent 10Q they posted of this play, and this company has plenty of cash. And not really like it doesn't really have the fundamentals of a play like some of these other low float names that ran today, um, like ADTX or like ASST or any of these types of names, right? Where it's like the fundamentals are laughably garbage. Doesn't mean it's automatic short, but does give you more confident that on these plays that give big. I mean, look at what was it, ADTX? Yeah. See, you get this massively overly aggressive pre-market parabolic. This creates a huge lack of support levels, almost essentially a gap fill to the downside, right? To fade back into, right? Just because in low float land, especially these hyper aggressive pushes have very loose support, right? and I wasn't here for any type of 7 a.m. push. Interesting how they use that 7 a.m. liquidity to swipe high a day and then just dump it. Pretty interesting. Um, you know, if you're, in my opinion, if you're not into short up here, it would be nicer for this to rotate and then pull, maybe past these lower highs, but it's up to you. Anyway, SHIM started doing, I was like, oh, maybe it'll just build some higher lows and crack and fade. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to risk up here. If this gets swiped, um, I'll just get out. And I was willing to make a second read because on this push, a bunch of ass also got filled. But I was like, man, this is I was like, do I have the wrong read on this? I was like, is this a thicker float play that's like these like grindy, thicker float plays? I was like, I'm not totally sure what the situation is. I was like, I'll wait for a pullback and a second push. We've seen how bearish that can be, where it's like, fills a bunch of ask, it pulls back, it makes a second retail kind of like chase push, like the fake 1 minute flag push, and I'll make a read there. But funny enough, it actually pulled back really, really, really. So that's better if it bases, say on like the 1 minute 9, bases on the 1 minute 9, second push and fail. A lot better than a deep, deep, deep pullback. It's one of those counterintuitive things where the deeper the pullback, ironically, the more bullish it is. And then once this started rotating, I was like, yeah, it still has a bunch of higher lows. You could still make, maybe a long trap read up here, and probably shorts in my room did, right? In the Discord room did. I just decided to pass. I did take, this was a pattern that I used to short. I think a trade in the Matrix made this popular, the whole floor wash trade, which I used to take these a lot back in like 20. This is like a very 2021, 2020, like me 3 years ago type of trade, where I'm like trying to predict a support crack. What was funny about this trade is that if we look at the book, so 308 had a hidden buyer and it was being defended. You could see 308 here. And then what I liked about this is that the hidden buyer was there. Some buying came in. I was like, oh, that's an interesting moment. And then when it came back down, they pulled this bid, and I was like, oh, this is nice. I was like, this is a nice little floor wash. Again, the thing about this play is my average is so bad that I just treated this as like a wallet padding scalp type move, not a whole lot. That means that I do want to talk about the trade that I miss, man, because sometimes you got to look at trades you miss, and it's like, what? So for market open long, we had APVO, which I missed. APVO was, and this was a huge miss for so many reasons, right? I was bearish the 4 a.m. parabolic here, but on the daily, this had a lot more interesting levels. Getting back to, I asked Mikey what he thought about this, and he's like, oh, there's this window gap. Like the top of this wick to the bottom of this wick is like 43 to 48, right? We got this and if it gaps up above this level, that window gap area can act as support. So the top of that range 48 can act as support. And this did what TKLF did, which is obviously super controlled walk down the open. But sometimes with these 4 a.m. parabolics, they don't work as well. So I was like, oh man, I'll look at this and I'll look at LGVN, right? And again, I talked about these higher highs, quick pullback structures. I was like, okay, these are the two. I said to my Discord, I'm like, these are the two main market open longs that I really like. They have the most volume and potentially the best structures. I did like LGVN a bit more, so I was paying attention to LGVN. The problem with LGVN is it pushed right away, and I'm like, man, I hope it knifes. I hope it knifes into some bids, and I can get long, right? And it did knife, but it was so quick. It a lot of times it's the same thing with APVO at market open. APVO had a fat bid at 40 cents, and a lot of times I like to see it hang, kind of like my AMIX long, right? I like to see it soak down there. I can make better reads if it's like soaking longer, but just like shorting, there's times where it makes sense to wait for a second push and see the reaction. Sometimes it makes sense to just instantly hit it the moment it taps. Like every chart's different. It's not always obvious to know which one is a one tap and go in terms of longs. Like which one's a long tap and go, which one's a hang out at support, soak some shares and push. It's not always obvious. Only reason I'm apprehensive about hitting like the very first tap of support is that I'm afraid it won't, like, even if it rotates and starts bouncing, it won't go anywhere. And that, what do you call it? And then it comes back down for a second test and cracks, right? So kind of getting into early where you could have waited for more confirmation, right? So I missed this play, but this play is much more interesting. This was a huge miss. Like, I don't actually mind missing this entry, but this entry was a huge miss because this is at 48 window gap level. It's always nice. If you miss the first entry, the second entry, you're going to want multiple bullish factors stacking on each other, right? Because it's risky. It's risky going long on a stock that's already aggressively pushing up only, right? It can feel like you're chasing. In this case, we had painted lower highs, right? Painted lower highs. We had the daily support level. We had the quick pullback to the 1 minute 20, right? We had increasing volume. There's a lot of nice things about this. I think in my mind, I saw this pullback. I'm like, oh yeah, it's touching that level, and then I just, I was waiting for more confirmation, right? I was almost waiting for it to hang out here a little, maybe another second test and bounce, like do this, struggle for a couple minutes, bounce it, maybe do another higher low and rip, something like that. Never got it, and this just even like here to here, this is a 25% move in like 10 minutes. Insane. We had 4 tickers, 4 days straight of market open longs working, which is great to see. I only caught one of them, sadly. But it'd be like that sometimes. But important is, it's okay to only catch 1 or 2 of them if you're minimizing your losses elsewhere, right? Which is why you don't see me taking too many other trades. I will say, an important factor I mentioned about these market open longs, it's in my Discord room. I'm like, hey, a lot of them, if they aggressively push at open, like straight up only at open like this, they tend to top out in this like 10 to 10:30 time frame, like SNTI, TKLF, AMIX, all these plays topped. You got massive, sometimes like 30 to 60, 70% moves. Usually on overly aggressive pushing, tends to top relatively soon. So I just want to mention that this was a big miss, and I do want to show the chart on LGVN at the top. So LGVN did the long trap, a long trap at the top here. Let me pull up. This actually had a perfect book for shorting. But the range on this was only up like 40% on the day, so I wasn't really in like short focused mindset. But I just want to point this out really fast. Is on this push. So let's say LGVN, you got off this bid. There was a bidder here, but I was waiting for like not 30 seconds of soaking. I was waiting for like a minute or two, right? But on this push, starts pushing towards highs. I start pulling ask, which is good to see, bid follow up. But then what happens at the top here? They fill this like 50K ask, and as they're filling the ask, bid starts getting pulled. This bid starts thinning up a bit. You start getting a lot of empty space to the downside, and we've seen how bearish big ask getting filled can be in the right context, because the whole concept behind this is long trap, like aggressive long trap push towards highs, and you pull it, right? So I was willing to make a read on the pullback to the 1 minute 50 here, but again, this is where waiting for a double test of the 1 minute 50 could have been really helpful, right? Like this, maybe reject VWAP, fake VWAP resistance, touch it again, then rip. Possibility, but guess what? By not instantly longing this candle, like this wick, I give myself some time to see what the stock's going to do. Stock goes straight down. I stop looking at it. So that's how I avoid plays like that. And really, that's it for today. I just had a small day on what's that ticker? SHIM. And, PAPL. Good old PAPL. SHIM. And, LCFY was interesting. I thought this could have been a high day clear out short trap off the 1 minute 50, especially the second tap of the 1 minute 50. Important thing to know about this play, because I had friends who were long this. I hesitated here, but who had this painted $8 lower high level, this becomes the long trap zone, right? So if you're longing a stock that's already making, especially, I'm usually very bearish to these pops before market open, right? Even if they push, I consider a lot of this type of move very bearish, right? So also market conditions today weren't like super amazing, so I was being a little apprehensive of longing at the top in this situation. But if you have a painted lower high level on a stock that's already making aggressive moves, especially if you know, we saw in the pre-market how little volume there was today, you definitely want to take profits over the painted liquidity level. It's like, where would the long trap be? That's if you're going to be longing off support, you want to be taking some amount of profit here, and that way if it knifes, you put your support. I think they had one bid at 740. Say your average was like 760, you could get some off in the 810s, 820s even. Um, you know, you're protecting yourself, and that way if it knifes down to 740, at least you're breaking even on the trade, maybe making a little bit, but at least you protect yourself. So anyways, that's it for today, guys. Kind of a slower day. I mean, not a whole lot of volume across the board. 4 market open longs in a row. We had one Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and today. So insane to see the market open longs work so well. And that's it. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Information below about the Discord if you want to, and the Patreon. Patreon has a lot of content on it too. That has been building over the past. Got to spend like 9 months now. That's wild. So, anyways, you guys have a good one. See you tomorrow.